Viktor Nikiforov glides smoothly on the ice rink as Yuri thinks about how he has admired him throughout his life. In the present, at the Sochi Grand Prix final, 3 players skate to the spotlight, and the commentator announces that the Russian legend Viktor Nikiforov has won the final for the 5th time in a row. He further goes on that the player Yuri got the last position even though it was his first time at the Grand Prix tournament. Meanwhile, Yuri goes through the news articles about his pathetic performance while his coach tells him to just ignore the news. Yuri is a 23-year-old man from Japan who is one of the top figure skaters certified by the JSF to train himself. He even moved to the training facility in Detroit, but due to the tournament's pressure and the last-minute death of his family dog, he ended up flunking his performance. He calls his mom, who tells him that she watched his performance with a bunch of other people, and he apologizes to her for losing. He then starts crying like a 2-year-old while a mysterious figure overhears his whining outside his bathroom stall. The figure, who is actually the Junior Grand Prix finalist and a gold medalist Yuri Pliski, kicks on his door. He tells him to retire since he will be competing in the tournament the next year and he doesn't want 2 Yuris in the same match. At the airport, a report pesters Yuri about his future plans and tells him not to give up. Yuri notices the blonde Yuri and Viktor conversing with each other, and when Viktor notices him staring, he asks him whether he needs a photo with him. Yuri finds it humiliating that he can't even talk with his idol, so he walks away. A year later, Yuri arrives at Hassetsu, his hometown, where he is returning after 5 years, and comes across posters of himself at the station. His teacher Minako comes to pick him up, while Yuri thinks about how he lost the nationals after losing the Grand Prix, and every other tournament which happened after that as well. He also ended things with his coach, and in the present, Minako drags him to let him meet with everyone in the town, but he makes an excuse that he's tired. In Tokyo, Viktor wins a tournament as usual while Yuri arrives home and his mom greets him. Minako notices that Yuri has become a fat pig, so she reminds him that figure skaters need to have a flawless build. Yuri then pays homage to his dead dog, and his elder sister asks him about his future plans. He replies that he is still thinking about it, so she tells him to relax in the hot springs for now. Yuri later soaks his fat body in the hot springs and afterwards watches the skating tournament on the TV with Minako. Yuri then runs over to the local ice rink where his old rink mate Yuyuko greets him. She allows him to use the rink alone so that nobody disturbs him, and Yuri thinks about how she used to be his idol as a child. In the past, Yuyuko defends Yuri from getting bullied and later shows Viktor's performance to him, due to which Yuri also becomes his fan. Yuri then gets a poodle dog when he reads an article that Viktor also had a poodle, and Yuyuko tells him that she hopes to see him compete against Viktor in the future. In the present, Yuri tells Yuyuko that he wanted to show her his performance that he has been practicing since the competition ended, and as he begins, Yuyuko realizes that he is imitating Viktor's performance. At the tournament, Viktor's performance begins as well, and he first does a quadruple Lutz in which he spins in the air 4 times. He then does his signature move, which is a quadruple flip, while Yuri does the same performance in perfect sync. Yuri and Viktor keep gliding at the same pace, and Minako comments that Viktor is very loose with his charms considering he has such a high female fan base. Viktor then does a quadruple salchow, and once again Yuri and Viktor glide effortlessly around the ice rink as the music's tempo starts to increase. Viktor then does a triple Lutz followed by a triple flip, and for his final quad, Viktor does a quadruple toe loop followed by triple toe loop. The commentator announces that he has landed all of his quads, and for the end, Viktor and Yuri both do a combination spin which leads to the end of the performance. Yuyuko fangirls over Yuri's skating, especially since his performance resembled Viktor's, and Yuri shares that he was very depressed in the beginning after losing the tournament. He then started doing Viktor's performance in order to get his love of skating back, since he and Yuyuko used to imitate Viktor back in the day too. He looks like he is about to confess, but just then, Yuyuko's 3 triplets show up and ruin the show. Even Yuyuko's husband shows up and tells Yuri that he can come practice anytime. Afterwards, Yuri watches a show on the blonde Yuri and how he is gearing up to enter the senior competition. Yuri then gets a message from Yuyuko's husband Nishigori telling him that his kids have uploaded a video of his earlier performance on the internet, and that his video has gone viral. Everybody watches the video, and even the blonde Yuri and Viktor himself come across the video. Yuri then holes up in his room out of embarrassment and only gets out when his mom tells him to shovel some snow. He comes across a poodle on his doorstep which reminds him of his old dog, and his dad tells him that the poodle has come along with a foreign guest. Yuri then rushes to the hot springs where he sees Viktor. He tells him that he will be his coach and will help him win the next Grand Prix final. In Russia, Viktor bids farewell to his coach Yakov and doesn't listen to him even when he tries hard to convince him to stay back. In the present, Minako rushes to Yuri's inn and finds Victor sprawled out on the mat. She reveals to Yuri that it's big news in Russia that Victor is taking the next season off, and that he got inspired when he watched the video of Yuri skating, so he decided to become his coach. In Russia, the blonde Yuri comes across this news and he runs off to find Yakov to get an explanation. Meanwhile, Yakov tells the media that Victor is struggling to find his motivation, and that he doubts Victor will come back now that he's gone. He then starts ranting that Victor can never become Yuri's coach since he is too selfish. In Japan, Victor wakes up and eats Yuri's favorite food, which is a pork cutlet bowl. Yuri tells him that he was only allowed to eat the bowl after winning the match and that he now eats it all the time. Victor reminds him that he is a pathetic fatso who cannot fit in his pants, so he should go back to his tournament weight or else he won't become his coach. Yuri then takes his luggage to his room and Victor tells him to share everything about himself so that he can get to know his rainbow self better. Yuri freaks out and later even stops Victor from barging into his room. He realizes that he cannot still believe that his idol is so near him. The next day, Victor makes him run laps around the town and even introduces himself to Yuyuko, which freaks her family out. Yuri asks Nishigori whether they can use the ice rink as their home base, and he agrees to talk to the higher-ups about it. Yuri thinks about how his video might have inspired Victor to coach him, and just then, Victor reminds him that a fatso like him cannot enter the ice rink till he drops some weight. Afterwards, Yuri does ballet with Minako as he thinks about Minako used to be a dancer who used to travel the world. He tells Victor that he doesn't like anyone and even shows him the Hassetsu Castle, which is a local tourist spot. Victor then posts a selfie with Hassetsu Castle, which goes viral, and reporters start rushing to Yuri's family in to interview Victor. Soon the town gets flooded with the reporters and they even ambush Victor at Yuyuko's ice rink. Meanwhile, Yuri keeps up his training to slim down, and a week later, the blonde Yuri arrives at Hassetsu too. He tries not to upload any picture as he roams around the town, but he comes across a cool shirt at a marketplace. Not being able to resist himself, he posts a selfie with the shirt, which makes Yakov discover that the blonde Yuri has also arrived in Japan. He tells Yakov on the phone that he doesn't plan to come back without making Victor realize that he has to fulfill his promise with him. In the past, as a child skater, the blonde Yuri does all kinds of unthinkable moves as he goes against the advice of Yakov. Yakov scolds him and Victor tells him that he can win without doing the quads. He then promises to choreograph a special program for his senior debut if he wins the Junior World Championship. In the present, both the Yuris come across each other at Yuyuko's ice rink, and the blonde Yuri starts bullying him from the get-go since he stole Victor from him. Yuri realizes that the blondie is actually underestimating him a lot, so he tells him to ask Victor whatever he wants by himself. They both then witness Victor skating on the ice, and the blonde Yuri reveals that Victor was already planning a routine for the next tournament, but since he cannot surprise anyone with his moves now, he was feeling down. He wonders whether Victor will let him use his routine for his senior debut, and afterwards Victor tells him that he had forgotten about their promise. He then declares to make a special program for the both of them in 1 week, and that they can both compete against each to see who can surprise the audience the most. An announcement gets made in Hassetsu that Russia and Japan will be competing against each other through both the Yuris, and the blonde Yuri then comes to the inn to stay beside Victor too. He takes a bath and gobbles down on the food like a typical teenager, and Yuri realizes that the other Yuri is full of potential, so he may even win the tournament. Yuri's sister names the blonde Yuri as Yurio to avoid the confusion, while Yuri takes off running as he starts feeling anxious. Later, Victor goes to Minako's bar to find Yuri, and she tells him that Yuri either does ballet at her place or practices ice skating whenever he's feeling the blues. Victor then goes to the ice rink where he finds Yuri skating, and Yuyuko tells him that although Yuri is very good at skating, he doesn't like to put himself out there even though he hates losing. The next day, Victor makes his two minions run laps around the town, and later at the ice rink, he makes them listen to the song that they will complete with. He reveals that the song has two types, Eros and Agape, and then assigns them both two different themes which are completely opposite to their personalities. He then reminds them both that they are very mediocre and that he won't choreograph a program for them if they can't win using this song. Yurio declares that Victor will return to Russia if he wins, and Yuri announces to eat a pork cutlet bowl with Victor in case he wins. Victor gives Yurio a demo of his performance on Agape and explains that Agape means selfless love, so his performance should reflect the theme. Despite the difficulty, Yurio says that he understands it, and Yuyuko even marvels at Victor's amazing performance. Victor then starts giving the performance for Yuri, which is based on the theme Eros, meaning love, and Yuyuko faints as his performance begins. After giving an out-of-the-world performance, Victor asks him which quads can Yuri land, and then shares that he will teach Yurio while Yuri can work on his basics first. He asks Yuri why he cannot win even though he has the skill, and Yuri replies that he lacks confidence. Victor then gets super personal with him as he explains that it's his job to bring out his confidence and ask him whether he can show him his true Eros. Afterwards, Yuri discusses with Nishigori that his concept of Eros is based on a story in which a handsome man chases after the most beautiful girl in the town, but when she finally falls in love with him, he leaves her. Victor tells Yuri that something is missing in his performance, and that he needs to show off less to give the feeling of a gape in his performance. Victor then takes Yuri to a temple to get physically battered, and later both Yuris arrive at the hot springs completely exhausted. Meanwhile, Victor asks Yuri to take his picture in the bath, which isn't allowed, and afterwards Yuri thinks about what Eros means to him since it involves completely losing rational thought over something. He realizes his feelings for a pork cutlet bowl may resemble Eros, and Victor comments that it's a unique idea. The next day, Victor practices with Yuri and reminds him of a pork bowl to motivate him, while he tells Yuri that he'll take him to the temple to improve his performance. They both keep up their practice under Victor's guidance as they both train daily and work hard to improve their stamina too. Victor notices that Yuri's performance isn't improving, so he tells him to go to a waterfall. Both the Yuris then soak under a waterfall, and as Yuri whines about the concept of a gape, he recalls how his grandfather used to come to his practice as a kid even though his mom was never present. The next day, Victor doesn't arrive on time since he was drinking till dawn, and Yuri asks Yuri to teach him how to do a quadruple salchow. They both practice on their own, but when Victor arrives, they separate and start practicing their routines. During his practice, Yuri thinks about how the concept of a gape's selfless love reminds him of his grandfather, and Victor realizes that Yuri is ready for the next stage now that he has found his agape. Yuri thinks that he needs to find his concept of Eros soon too, and afterwards Victor ships in all of his costumes from Russia. Yuri comes across Victor's costume that he wore to his junior championship, so he chooses to wear it for his match. He then goes to Monako late at night and asks her to teach him something. The next day, the official competition starts, in which both the Yuris will perform short programs specifically designed by Victor for them. Yuri tells the reporters that he will crush Yuri, while Victor tells everyone to come to Hassetsu to enjoy themselves. Both the players then remind Victor of his promise to them, and afterwards they both warm up as the ice rink gets filled with many people. Yuri then reveals his see-through costume, which is actually Victor's costume from his junior school days. Yuri begins his performance first as he smoothly skates on the ice according to the rhythm of the music. He does a triple axel first, and as his performance continues, everyone becomes enchanted by it. Even Yuri becomes mesmerized by his performance, and he realizes that Yuri's performance changed after the moment under the waterfall when he realized something. Yuri is unable to take his eyes off Yuri as he enters the second half of his performance and does a quadruple salchow. He follows it by doing a triple toe loop, and he then does a quadruple toe loop. He finishes his performance by doing a combination spin as he thinks about how he has been unable to think about his grandfather due to his skating. His performance finishes, and Victor yells at him that it's his best performance that he has ever given. Yuri starts to get blue balls as he thinks about how Victor will return to Russia if he doesn't win, so he begins panicking, and Victor tells him to start his performance. He tells Victor to keep an eye on him since he will become a pork cutlet bowl, and even hugs him, so Victor reveals that he loves pork cutlet bowls. Yuri gets on the rink to perform, and Monako thinks about their practice last night. Yuri's performance on Eros begins, and he begins smoothly gliding on the ice. He does a seductive sequence of steps which makes even Victor surprised at the beginning, and Monako recalls how Yuri requested her to show him how to move in a feminine way to make his performance seductive. In the present, Yuri does a spread eagle with a triple axel, and he then fails to do a quadruple salchow. He recovers by putting his hand on the ice, and he reminds himself that he's more charming than any woman out there. After giving himself such a pathetic affirmation, he does a quadruple toe loop followed by a triple toe loop. He finishes his performance, and after complimenting him, Victor starts criticizing his moves and how he can improve them. Yuri heads back as he realizes he has lost, and he tells Yuko that he will definitely win the Grand Prix final. Meanwhile, Yuri becomes the winner of the competition and tells everyone that he plans to become the winner of the Grand Prix final with Victor. Yuri wakes up late in the morning and runs all the way to the ice rink where Victor is waiting for him. He practices with Victor as usual and fumbles one of his jumps. Later during bath, Victor suggests that Yuri should scrap his 3 quads, and Yuri replies that he wants to do the 3 quads to win the Grand Prix final. In figure skating, Jumps, spins, choreography, and interpretation each get different points from the judges, and Yuri usually loses points in his matches by fumbling up his jumps. Victor tells Yuri that he became his coach because he skates as if his body is creating music, and that he wants to create a difficult program to maximize his skill. Victor suggests that Yuri should create his next program by himself, and Yuri begins whining that his coach always used to select the music for him. Afterwards, Yuri contacts his previous coach Celestino, who tells Victor that Yuri never came forward with a music suggestion of his own other than this one time when he came forward with an acquaintance's music but backed away soon enough. Yuri tells Celestino that he will redeem himself by winning the tournament this time, while Victor asks Yuri to let him hear his acquaintance's music. Yuyuko informs Yurio that Yuri is selecting his own free program, and he wonders whether she's trying to scout the enemy. Another skater, Mila, teases Yurio by asking him whether he has a girlfriend now, and Yakov has to break them off as they both start arguing. Yurio practices skating while Yakov tells Mila that Yurio has become serious about his practice since getting his bum handed over to him by Yuri. Yakov then invites over his ex-girlfriend Lilia, who used to be prima ballerina, and after analyzing Yurio left and right, she tells him that she's going to choreograph his free program. He shares that he is willing to sell his soul to win, and she then asks him to move in with her to practice daily. In Japan, Yuri struggles to form his program, especially since Victor didn't give too much of an enthusiastic response when he listened to the acquaintance's music. He then calls his friend from Detroit, Fitchett, who is originally from Thailand, and asks him about the girl student who used to live near them who composed the music piece for him. Fitchett assures him that he will ask around for her, and Yuri thinks about how he asked her to compose the music for him based on his life, due to which the music seems weak. Yurio gets his bum whooped by Lilia while in Japan. Victor comments about how weak Yuri is since he can't even choose his music. Yuri snaps at him in anger, but afterwards he keeps feeling guilty for showing Victor some attitude. The next morning, Victor drags Victor to the ocean and asks him whether anything reminds him of the things he likes. Yuri shares how he went to the hospital with a girl in Detroit when she got injured, but when she tried to hug him, he backed away because he felt she was being too intrusive. Yuri then tells him that he was avoiding him because he didn't want to appear like a weak, pathetic loser to him, and that he will make it up through his skating, so Victor replies that he won't go easy on him. Yuri then gets into contact with the Detroit girl, who agrees to redo the music composition for him. Meanwhile, he asks Victor to teach him all the jumps he knows. Yurio also does his practice under Lilia's guidance, who tells him that even a crab has a better free leg than him. After their practice, Victor comments that Yuri has pretty good stamina, while Yuri touches Victor's hair out of curiosity, which makes him think that he is balding. Yuri then receives the new music piece, so he barges into Victor's room late at night to make him hear it, and Victor gives him his approval. Afterwards, they both discuss Yuri's choreography, and Victor suggests that he should do a quadruple toe loop at the end since he has good stamina. The Grand Prix assignments get announced, which dictate where each player will perform in order to qualify for the Grand Prix. Yuri gets nominated to play first in the China Cup, where his friend Fitchett will also be performing, and next in the Russia Rostelecom Cup, where Yurio will also be performing. The others comment that the other players will think Yuri stole Victor away from the skating world, which makes him nervous. Since Yuri lost in the Nationals the last year, he has to compete in 4 local tournaments first in order to advance to Grand Prix first, and he will have to compete against Minami too, who won the Nationals last year. Yuri realizes that he has Victor at his side, who is struggling with him, so he won't lose this time. The next day, Yuri practices his performance on his chosen song while Yurio practices his slick moves in Russia. Yurio's peers think about how fast he is changing while in Japan. Yuri thinks about how this may be his last year of figure skating, since all figure skaters have a limit. He thinks that he doesn't know how long Victor will stick by his side, so he prays to God to give him some of Victor's time. Later, Victor asks him to name his new music piece, so Yuri gives it a title of Yuri on Ice. For his first local tournament, Yuri draws out the lot, and it turns out that he's participating first. He also fails to recognize Nanami, who draws out the 4th lot. Yuri practices skating as he thinks about how he's still unsure about his skills and how he messed up in the Nationals last time, due to which he embarrassingly lost. He then warms up for the match and tries to remain focused so that he doesn't get nervous. Minako observes that he is nervous, and after the warm-up, Victor asks him to turn around. Victor then hugs him from behind, and as groups of reporters take their picture, Victor asks him to seduce him with all his strength. He reminds him that if he can charm him, then he can amaze all the audience too. Yuri then begins his performance, and as he skates on the ice, he starts thinking about how the audience isn't giving much of a reaction. But he reminds himself that he needs to seduce Victor alone. He then does a spread eagle followed by a triple axel and continues to do a quadruple salchow. He messes up the move as always, but as he recovers, he recalls Victor's words that his body seems to create a music which he wants to see more. For his last combination, he does a quad with a triple rotation, but in panic, he does a double instead. He then finishes his performance as he keeps overthinking his steps, and the audience showers him with applause. Victor gives him an honest review that he did a great job in the first half but made sloppy jumps in the second half due to his overthinking. He scores 94.36, which is his personal best, and the reporter tells him that his score would have been in top 10 if it was an international performance. Victor comments that he was expecting more than 100 points, and he then advises him to lower the difficulty of his jumps to improve his performance. Yuri becomes reluctant to hear this, and Victor reminds him to listen to his coach's instructions. Nanami also fangirls over Yuri's smooth moves like a little child, and he vows to show him his seriousness through his skating. After his performance, he asks Yuri for his reviews on his performance, and Yuri shares that he didn't get to see it since he was being interviewed. Minami issues a challenge to compete with him the next day, and Yuri realizes that Minami is actually the skater who surpassed him in the nationals after he self-destructed like a loser. The next day, Yuri keeps overthinking everything despite having limited brain capacity, and even ignores Minami on the way. He does his warm-up, after which Victor asks him how he can motivate himself if he can't even motivate others like Minami. Victor then walks away after telling him that he's disappointed in him, leaving him behind in a slump. Minami gets on the ice first, and Yuri yells good luck to him, which fires him up. His performance begins as he skates to an energetic song, and he does a triple axel first. He follows it by doing a quadruple toe loop and soon messes up one of his jumps. Yuri realizes that Minami is inconsistent, similar to how he used to be, but soon Minami starts rocking his performance as he effortlessly glides on the ice. He does a tempo dance, and Yuri walks away when he sees that Minami is the star in everyone's eyes. Minami's performance finishes, and he gets a 154 score while Yuri puts some music on to concentrate and focus. He does some stretching while outside in the ice rink. The other two skaters give their performance. Yuri then walks towards the ice rink with a focused face and even slaps Minami on the back. He doesn't freak out when Victor does one of his rainbow moves and puts lip balm on his chapped lips. They both then hug, and Yuri walks off on the ice as the commentator announces that Yuri will be performing on self-composed music called Yuri on Ice with choreography designed by Victor, his coach. The performance begins, and Yuri does a quad double combination instead of quad triple combo, which he and Victor had practiced earlier. Since the music is supposed to represent different phases of Yuri's life, Victor notices that Yuri looks really stiff when he reaches the part where Victor became his coach in his life. Yuri then attempts to do a quadruple salchow, in which he stumbles, and Victor realizes that Yuri plans to go against his advance by doing 3 quads instead. Yuri then does a perfect triple loop and reaches the music, which represents the phase of his life where he finds love. As the second half nears, Yuri does an outside spread eagle followed by an in a Bauer move. He then does a triple axel and follows it by doing a triple flip. He messes up one of his steps while Victor realizes that even though Yuri isn't nailing his steps, the audience is enchanted by him because he is moving with the music. Yuri skates in an impatient way and even smashes his face on the wall as his performance comes to an end. His performance then ends with him pointing in Victor's direction, and Victor wonders why he would rebel against his coach's directions like this. The audience gives him a loud applause, and rather than giving him a lecture, Victor also invites him in to give him a hug. Yuri ends up scoring 165 points, and Victor marvels at the fact that Yuri could score so high despite making such a pathetic jump earlier. Minami tells him that he wants to compete with him at the Grand Prix, and all the skaters ask him for an autograph. Yuri shares with his peers that he had a lot of fun in his performance, and afterwards at the press conference, he tells the reporters that his theme for skating for the international matches is love, due to the fact that the people around him shower him with love, and because he loves Victor as well. Yuri leaves his home with Victor and takes off to Beijing for the China Cup. At the Skate Canada tournament, Yuri comes second in his first senior tournament, and at the China Cup tournament, the reporters ask him how much love he has. Victor comes across his old ugly coach Yakov, and he taunts him for playing pretend coach. Afterwards, Victor and Yuri go out to eat in Beijing, and Fitchett finds them there. He invites his coach Celestino to join them too. China's skater Guang Hong and an American skater Leo also join the gang, but they find a drunken Victor instead, who keeps taking his clothes off. Fitchett posts a photo of drunken Victor online, which goes viral. And the next day, another skater, Chris, asks Yuri why he didn't invite him too. Chris tells Victor that he is not motivated to compete without him, and some girls also ask him whether he's serious about being a coach. Chris tells Yuri that keeping Victor to himself is a grave sin, since the whole world is waiting for his return. The tournament begins as Fitchett gets ready to perform first. He needs to get second position or higher to qualify for Grand Prix, and his performance begins with him skating to a South Asian themed song. Fitchett smoothly glides on the ice and does a triple axel first. Yuri realizes that Fitchett is pretty serious about his performance since he always wanted to dance to this particular song, and as his performance enters the second half, he does a triple Lutz followed by a triple toe loop. For his second combination, he does a quadruple toe loop but ends up falling on the ice instead. He recovers quickly and his performance continues as he does a combination spin next. He skates splendidly according to the rhythm of the music, which pumps up the audience, and he then finishes with a round of applause from the audience. He gets a score of 86, which is his personal best, and next Guanghong from China steps forward to perform next. He becomes nervous because of Fitchett's extraordinary performance, and when his own performance begins, he nails a quadruple toe loop which he had recently learned. Meanwhile, Yuri starts having a crisis of his own as usual as he thinks about how the world won't be satisfied with his performance since they expect something of Victor's level. He decides to become the man who is hated for taking Victor away from the world. Yuri tells Victor not to take his eyes off of him, and he then rushes towards the ice rink. His performance of Eros begins and Yuri reminds himself that the world wants to get to know the new him. He does a unique sequence of steps in the first half only as he has planned all the jumps for the last half, and when the second half comes, he does a spread eagle which leads into a triple axel. Surprisingly, he does a quadruple salchow next, which he always used to mess up before, and he keeps reminding himself that only he can satisfy Victor. He then does a quadruple toe loop followed by a triple toe loop and follows it by doing a hectic spin which he slightly struggles with. Chris thinks that Yuri has completely changed, and Yuri then finishes his performance under the shower of applause from everyone. Victor tells him that he is the best student ever while Yuri gets a score of 106, which is his personal best. Yakov tells his student Georgi that he can win now that Victor is gone, and the Goth King Georgi then begins his performance. He does a triple axel while Mila tells Yurio that Georgi's girlfriend has just broken up with him, due to which he's very heartbroken. Georgi does a quadruple salchow and almost starts crying as he vows to make his girlfriend pay for leaving him for another man. He does a quadruple combination and then finishes off strong. He gets a score of 96 for his performance, and Miller recalls that even his ex is participating in the China Cup. Leo gets to perform next on his self-composed song, and he does a triple axel first. Leo has no quads planned for his performance, so he does a triple flip and follows it by doing a triple toe loop combination. He instead focuses on his presentation and interpretation to get more score from the judges, and he recalls how he got motivated to perform like this due to the song that he discovered. He then finishes his performance and gets a score of around 86, coming third in place. Next up, Chris takes the stage and thinks about how he doesn't want to lose to Yuri since Maturieros is his theme. His performance begins, and right off the bat he does a quadruple Lutz which turns into a triple instead at the last second. He decides to take it slow before the Grand Prix and does a combination spin next. Victor notices that Chris has a lot of appeal in his performance, and Chris thinks about how he has to compete against Yuri's innocent appeal. He does a triple axel and decides to show Yuri how far ahead of him he is. He does a triple flip following it by doing a triple toe loop and then finishes his performance with a frustrated looking face of a creep. The ladies go crazy over his performance, but not the men, as he scores around 85 points. With all the performances done, Yuri comes first with Yakov's Georgi coming in second, and Yuri announces that he plans to win with the help of Victor's love. Yuri struggles to sleep before the third event of the China Cup since he keeps getting calls from everyone about his performance, and the next day, Victor forces him to sleep before the event. Yuri still doesn't sleep properly, and when Victor notices his more than dead appearance, he forbids him to do any jumps in the 6 minutes warm-up before the match. Victor thinks about how Yuri will become even more nervous if he messes up a jump in his warm-up, and just then, Yuri attempts a jump and fails. Victor then tells him to take it easy, and for the first performance of the day, Guanghong from China arrives at the ice rink. He messes up a rotation in the beginning but soon covers it up by flawlessly landing all his jumps in the first half. Yuri watches all of this and turns off the TV in nervousness while Victor thinks about what to do with the pathetic loser. Guanghong messes up one of his moves as he falls on the ice, but he recovers and does a perfect sequence next. He gets into the zone as he imagines himself as an underground assassin who is going to become the hero, and as an assassin, he enters into a combat with the rival organization's boss. Somehow, after reenacting this cringe fantasy in his mind, he finishes his performance and gets a score of 79. Next up, Chris hugs his coach and enters the ice rink. Yuri does his warm-up while Chris begins his performance and does high difficulty quadruple Lutz first. He does a quadruple Salchow next and follows it by doing a triple axel, a single loop and a triple Salchow combination. Victor notices that Yuri is having tummy issues, so he drags him and takes him away from everyone. On the ice, Chris does a quadruple Salchow which he follows by doing a double toe loop. Chris recalls how when he was just about to enter the senior division, Victor had just won a championship and had given him a flower. He vows to win so that Victor can come back and does a triple axel as his last jump. He then finishes his performance and gets a score of 85, bringing him to the first person among the skaters. Victor takes Yuri to the parking lot away from everyone else while Fitchett gets on the ice next and reminds himself that he will be the Thailand's future. He does a triple axel first and then does a quadruple toe loop. Since he can't do more than 2 quads, he decides to focus on more moves in the second half to score more points. He then does a quadruple toe loop which is followed by a double toe loop, hence successfully landing his second quad. Yuri continues his warm-up in the basement while Fitchett does some smooth moves as he does a triple flip, a single loop and finally a double flip combination. Fitchett then finishes off strong, and as the audience roars with applause, Victor and Yuri hear the cheering all the way down in the basement. Victor clamps Yuri's ears when he notices his nervous expression, and Fitchett gets a score of around 86 which puts him in first place. Leo comes to skate next and Victor wonders why Yuri is so nervous since he is not a young skater who hasn't faced international competition before. He decides to be rough, so he tells him that if he doesn't perform well he will take responsibility by resigning as his coach. Yuri then bursts out crying and demands why he would say something like this since he is already worried about leaving a bad impression on his coach through his performance. He tells him to stand by his side no matter what happens and yaps endlessly about his insecurities and sentiments. Leo gets a low score which puts him on the 6th place, and Georgi from Russia starts his performance next. He remembers his ex-girlfriend Anya as he skates on the ice and does a quadruple Salchow first. He follows it by doing a triple toe loop combination and then does a perfect triple loop. His ex-girlfriend Anya sees the performance, so she gets ready to leave, and Georgi gets even more emotional when he sees this. He messes up on a quadruple Salchow while Victor brings Yuri back and then does a triple flip next. Yuri's family notices that he has been crying due to his red eyes, and Georgi meanwhile gets a score of 98 which gets him the 3rd position. Yuri then drops off his tissue, and as Victor bends his head to pick up the tissue, Yuri touches his head. Yakov notices this gesture and thinks about how Victor has a long time to go if his student is consoling him. Yuri skates to the center and his performance on Yuri on ice begins. He thinks about Victor's priceless expression when he started crying and how he has never cried before a match before. He does quadruple toe loop which is followed by a double toe loop combination, and even Celestino notices that Yuri seems very relaxed now. He lands a quadruple Salchow perfectly and then does a triple loop. He then glides smoothly across the ice and attempts to do a triple axel which he fumbles slightly. He then does a triple loop and thinks about how Victor would react if he changed his last quad into a loop instead of a toe loop. For his combination moves, he does a triple loop which he ends up over-rotating too much and then does a triple Lutz triple loop combination. Despite not sleeping properly, he does a magnificent step sequence next, and then for his last combination, even though he has a quadruple loop planned, he attempts to do a quadruple flip which used to be Victor's signature move. He ends up falling despite doing all the rotations properly, and this shocks everyone since even Victor never attempted to do this move at the end of the match due to high fatigue. He finishes his performance and jumps into Victor's arm. Later he gets a silver medal while Fitchett comes first and Chris comes in 3rd. Yakov arrives in Russia with his minions and Yurio rushes off right off the bat. He sneaks off to see his grandfather outside the airport and jumps to hug him. His grandfather feeds him bread in the vehicle and Yurio asks him whether he has ever had pork cutlet bowl. Victor also arrives in Russia and he tells the reporters that he can only comment on his future plans after the Grand Prix final. The reporters ask him whether he sees Yuri as a competitor in figure skating, and rather than answering, he points the reporters in the direction of Yurio, who is nearby. He tries to get chummy with Yurio, but Yurio slaps his face away and tells him that he is Russian top star. Yuri gets to his hotel and comes across Seung-gil, who is the Korean skater. Seung-gil gets into a fight with 2 other people in the elevator, so Yuri sneaks away to another elevator where he comes across Yurio. Yurio reminds him that he will crush him, and Yuri thinks about how he has to score more than the 4th position to qualify for the Grand Prix. He wonders what Victor will do if he doesn't qualify for the Grand Prix. For the Grand Prix, since the first 2 skaters are already decided, the others players are now competing to qualify for the remaining 4 positions. For the first event, after the initial warm-up, Seung-gil from Korea starts his performance first, and he begins strong as he does a quadruple loop first. Since his theme is greed, he does a triple axel next, but he falls down instead. Up next, he does a triple lutz, following it by doing a triple toe loop next, and as he takes his steps, he keeps calculating his marks in his mind. He does a passionate sequence of steps while keeping a poker face and then ends his performance. He gets a score of around 91, and up next, Emil from Czech starts his performance. Inside, all the skaters wait for their turns while Emil finishes his performance with a score of around 82 points. Mickey from Italy enters the ice rink to skate next and begins his performance especially for his sister. As he does his sequence, he does a triple axel first and thinks about how he has never let any man approach his sister. He decides to skate forever with his sister and attempts to do a quadruple salchow next, which he fails at. He keeps creepily thinking about his sister and then does a triple lutz loop combination. His performance ends and Sarah, his sister, thinks about how he can perform on his own now. Victor ties shoes for Yuri while Emil gets a score of around 89, which earns him a second position. Yuri hears that his grandfather isn't coming to watch him play, and Yuri tells Victor that his performance has already started as he pulls him close. He begins his performance on Eros and tries to captivate the audience and the judges from the get-go. He reminds himself that no one expects him to win here, which boosts his non-existent confidence even more. Meanwhile, Yuri gets ready to perform too. Yuri does a triple axel first from a spread eagle and proceeds to land a quadruple salchow smoothly. He then skates smoothly on the ice and proceeds to do a quadruple toe loop, which is followed by a triple toe loop. He nails the combo while Yuri notices how much refined Yuri's performance has become since they went against each other. Yuri then finishes his performance with a standing ovation from the audience, and people even throw flowers at him. Yuri thinks about how he would have been able to give a perfect agape performance in his grandfather's presence. Nonetheless, he reveals his costume and enters the ice rink to perform next. Yuri starts to get nervous as Yakov and Lilia drill instructions to him, and he notices that Yuri has got a score of around 110. Yuri and Victor then wish him good luck, which pisses him to no end, so he forgets about his nervousness and rushes off towards the ice. Yuri's performance begins and he realizes he feels pretty frustrated. He falls when he attempts to do a triple axel, and he reminds himself that he just lacks experience. He then does his first quad by doing a quadruple salchow followed by triple toe loop, and he does a quadruple toe loop next. After landing his quads successfully, Yakov thinks about how Yuri always analyzes his performances midway to make a stronger comeback. Yuri keeps feeling frustrated, but he still finishes his performance strong. The ladies go crazy over his girlish look, and even another skater named JJ makes a remark on his girlish look, which pisses him off. He then gets a score of 98, which puts him in the second position, and up next the last skater, JJ from Canada, begins his performance next. He performs on his self-composed song and gives himself a narcissistic, pathetic self-talk about how great he is. He does a quadruple toe loop first followed by a triple toe loop, and then makes a triple axel move next. The commentator gushes over the fact that JJ scored a bronze medal in the last Grand Prix while JJ thinks about how great he is again. The audience sings along to his song, and in the second half, JJ does a quadruple lutz, which even Victor never attempted to do in the second half. For the 100th time, he tells himself that he is great and finishes off strong. Yuri gets a call telling him that Victor's dog is sick, while JJ gets a score of around 113, which puts him in first place. Yuri asks Victor to return to Japan for his dog's sake, so Victor asks Yakov to become Yuri's coach for one day. Victor tells Yuri to ask Yakov if he doesn't understand anything, and then flies off to Japan. The next day, Yuri tells the reporters that he will do what he has always done in his practice with Victor, while Yuri meets up with his grandfather, who feeds him pork cutlet break, much to his delight. For the second event, Emil from Czech starts his performance first on the theme Cyberpunk. He has 4 quads planned, due to which he does a quadruple salchow right off the bat and follows it by doing a quadruple toe loop and a triple toe loop combination. Meanwhile, Emil's sister Sarah, who is also a skater, tells Mickey that she can win her tournament with or without his help, so he should win his tournament without her support as well. Emil does a quadruple toe loop while Mickey and Sarah have their cringe breakup. Mickey wonders whether Sarah likes Czech men, and Emil does a quadruple loop, successfully landing all of his quads. He messes up his combination jump and almost falls down again due to being tired, but still finishes his performance. Up next, Mickey starts off his performance with a quadruple salchow, and as he remembers Sarah, he does a triple flip next. He follows it by doing a single loop, a triple salchow, and after doing the combo, he does a triple axel next. Mickey recalls how he and Sarah grew up together, how he protected her against all the dudes, and how he is going to skate for her for the last time. Sarah starts crying to add to the dramatics, and Mickey does a triple lutz next. He finishes his performance and gets a score of around 193, which gets him the second position, and Sarah rushes to his side to hug him. She compliments his skating and then rushes off to watch Seung-gil's performance. On the ice, Seung-gil messes up his performance while Yuri decides to change his jumping composition to include more jumps in the second half to get ahead of the others. Seung-gil gets a score which puts him in the third position, and he gets eliminated from the Grand Prix. Yuri gets on the ice next and begins his performance, which is choreographed by Lilia and is known for being very difficult. He lands his first quad successfully and does a triple axel from a spiral. The second half begins and he starts off with a triple lutz first. He follows it by doing a triple flip, and he thinks about how Yuri and JJ have 3 and 4 quads, so he needs to overperform them. He does a quadruple toe loop next and follows it by doing a combination of quadruple salchow and a triple toe loop. He then does a triple loop led by a double toe loop, and for his last jumping combination, he does a triple axel, single loop, and a triple salchow, one followed by another. After landing all of his jumps, he finishes off his performance, and under the applause of the audience and the skaters, he gets a personal best score which gets him the first position. Yuri begins his performance next, and he thinks about how he can't let Victor's efforts go to waste. He does a quadruple toe loop but fumbles on his jump as he accidentally does a single rather than a double rotation. He realizes that a lot is on his mind, due to which his performance is not on par, and once again he fumbles a jump despite doing the full rotations. He thinks about how Victor always believed in him, and as he keeps underperforming, even Yuri almost yells at him to do better. Yuri does a triple axel followed by a triple flip, and he thinks about how he has more stamina than Yuri. He does a combination which involves a triple axel, single loop, and triple salchow, and follows it by doing a triple lutz and a triple toe loop. He finishes off his performance after doing an intense step sequence and then falls on the ice completely exhausted. Later, he gets a score which earns him the third position, and JJ gets ready to perform next. He begins his performance by reminding himself that he is the only king of the ice and not Yuri, even if Victor has chosen him. He starts off strong with a quadruple salchow and then does a triple combination next. Once again he starts his cringe as he thinks about how he is not the prince but a king of cringe instead, who will become the world champion. He does a triple axel which is followed by a quadruple lutz and does a combination which involves a triple flip, a single loop, and a triple salchow. For his last jump he does a quadruple toe loop which he lands successfully and then finishes off his performance. JJ and Yuri qualify for the Grand Prix since they are first and second, and Yuri qualifies for the Grand Prix too. Afterwards he creepily hugs everyone as if he is in a trance while Yuri runs away from him to avoid being hugged. Yuri then thinks about Victor, which is all he knows what to do, and afterwards Yuri scolds him for being down about his performance, since even Yuri himself came second to JJ despite giving his best performance. He then gives him the pork cutlet bread that his grandfather made. Later Yuri rushes to hug Victor at the airport and asks him to be his coach till he retires. Victor comments that it sounds like a marriage proposal and that he wishes Yuri would never retire. Victor soaks in a pool in Barcelona as he thinks about how he has neglected his life and love for the 20 years of his life. Chris walks over to him with a champagne bottle and tells him that only he can be stupid enough to swim at such a time. The Grand Prix final is going to take place in Barcelona, and Chris tells Victor that he is currently the oldest skater after Victor has left. Victor then takes Chris's pictures and he recalls how he met Chris when he was still a child and how he has shared the Grand Prix final stage many times with Chris. At the hotel, groups of girls fangirl over Yuri, and on Lilia's instructions, he refrains himself and takes pictures with them. JJ's fiancé makes fun of them for being childish, so he calls her ugly, and JJ calls him jealous for making such petty comments. They both argue and JJ notices Audebek, who is a skater from Kazakhstan. Victor recalls that Audebek has a very specific aura around him, and even JJ invites him out to eat dinner with him, but Audebek refuses since he refuses to socialize with any of them. He gives Yuri a pointed stare and then leaves. Meanwhile, Fitchett tries to get in contact with Yuri, but when he fails, he goes out to roam around the town on his own. He takes selfies, which is probably the only thing he knows how to do after skating, while Victor thinks about how it has been 8 months since he went to Hassetsu, and how he has spent his time taking baths and eating delicious foods. Yuri wakes up and goes through all the skaters' social media accounts because he prefers feeling like a loser all the time. He recalls his failed performance in last year's Grand Prix finale and starts whining about missing Victor. Suddenly Victor bursts into the room with Chris and asks him to run a hot bath for him. He and Chris both jump on Yuri and he yells at them to get off him. All the players practice skating and Victor thinks about how Yuri has planned a quadruple flip as his last jump, which he has never even landed in practice but without which he can't score more than JJ. Victor advises him to rest the day before the first event, but Yuri asks him to take him sightseeing in Barcelona instead. Both of them go out and have fun as they explore around the town, eat food and do shopping. Victor then takes him to buy a new suit while Yuri tries to run away from his horde of fangirls. He hides away in an alley and eventually Audebik comes to his rescue. He takes him away in a motorbike and afterwards Audebik tells Yuri that they have actually trained together 5 years ago at Yakov's camp. Audebik reveals that he was put in the novice class, but Yuri always had a soldier look on his face, and Yuri replies that he was desperate at that time and never wanted to complain. Audebik declares that he wants to win the championship for his country, and then asks Yuri to become friends with him, which Yuri accepts like a good boy. Yuri accidentally ends up losing a bag of nuts that Victor bought and somehow fails to recall where he dropped it. He tells Victor that he will buy another one, but Victor tells him that he's tired, so they both walk to their hotel in awkwardness. They walk through a Christmas market and Yuri asks Victor what he would like for his birthday, which is on Christmas. Victor reveals that they don't celebrate Christmas in Russia or birthdays before the actual day, while Yuri looks around him in silence. He then drags Victor into a store where he buys Lucky Charms for the both of them, and since he is a broke man, he tells the shopkeeper that he will pay in installments. After purchasing the charm, he adorns Victor's hand with a ring and thanks him for everything that he has done for him. Victor puts a ring on Yuri's hand too and tells him to show him the skating that he would like the best. Afterwards, they both join the other skaters in a banquet and Yuri comments that he ate a banquet alone last year. The others tell him that he actually got drunk in the previous year's banquet, after which he started dancing a lot too. The others share their version of their story and Victor says that he even has videos from that day. In the past, Yuri's coach drags him to a banquet and since he has no company there, he keeps drinking champagne all by himself till he gets drunk. In the present, Fitchett notices the pair of rings on Yuri and Victor's hands, so he makes the assumption that the both are involved in some kind of nasty romantic relationship. He announces to the whole restaurant that his friends are getting married and nobody pays Yuri any attention as he tries to calm the situation down. Victor then tells everyone that they are wearing engagement rings only and that they will wear marriage rings only when Yuri has won a gold medal. This makes everyone serious and JJ, who is passing by the restaurant, declares that he will win the gold medal instead and get married. Everyone ignores him and leaves the restaurant to get ready for the next day. In the morning, Yuri asks Victor why he looks so happy to babysit a pig like Yuri and that he doesn't look up to him as a skater at all. Victor realizes that Yuri would never be this motivated if he was still competing. Everyone gathers at the stadium for the men's figure skating tournament finale of Grand Prix while the other skaters and friends get ready to watch the tournament online. The Grand Prix finale begins and Yuri takes the stage first since he is currently 6th in place. Victor kisses Yuri's hands and bids him farewell for his performance. Yuri begins his performance on Anilast first and recalls how he requested Victor to change his jumping composition by including a quad flip during their practice to get more marks. Victor tells him that he hasn't landed a quad flip in his practice even, and Yuri replies that he has time to improve his execution. He asks Victor whether he doesn't want to see him doing a quadruple flip, so Victor agrees and they both hug. In the present, Yuri does a triple axel perfectly and follows it by doing a combination which involves a quadruple salchow and a triple toe loop. He then increases his speed and does a quadruple flip but lands on the ice with one hand to balance himself. He finishes his performance and immediately starts regretting his performance because he messed up the flip. Victor recalls how he used to take his performance as a new challenge every single time, but this approach always limited his skills. Yuri gets a score of around 97 and Fitchett goes to the ice rink to perform next. Fitchett's performance begins under the applause of all of his fans from Thailand and he does a triple axel first. He then does a triple lutz followed by a triple toe loop, which he tops it up by doing a quadruple toe loop. Since he has no previous accomplishments, he plans to have a new beginning and Coach Celestino cheers him on too. In the past, Fitchett tells Yuri that he wants to skate on a specific music piece as the first Thai player in a major competition. He skates on the very same music in the present and then finishes his performance with a bang. He gets a score of around 95, which gets him the second position. Yuri gets ready to perform next and he begins his performance on a gape which was choreographed by Victor. He does a triple axel first with a raised hand to earn more marks and then does a flying sit spin. As he enters the second half, he does a combination which includes a quadruple salchow and a triple toe loop with an arm raised to get extra marks again. For his last quad, he does a quadruple toe loop with both hands raised and then finishes his performance. The audience showers him with applause and Yuri realizes that he had zoned out in the middle of the performance while Victor also watches his performance from a distance. Yuri then gets a score of around 118, which not only gets him the first position but he also ends up breaking the world record of Victor. Up next, Chris from Switzerland begins his performance, which immediately turns the mood from selfless love agape into adult appeal. For his first jumps, he does a quad which is a quadruple Lutz and then does a combination spin next as his long-life rival Victor also watches his performance with focus. He does a triple axel next, and for his last jump, he ends up rotating a little too much which messes up his move. He then finishes his performance and gets a score of around 102, which earns him the second position against Yuri's third position. Up next, Audebek gets ready to perform next and even Yuri cheers him on. For his first jump, he does a quadruple toe loop which he follows by doing a triple toe loop next. Looking at his performance, Sarah comments that Audebek wasn't memorable before, and Audebek recalls how he had fewer resources in the past and a massive talent to compete against. He reminds himself that the ice is a battlefield in which he needs to survive, and he then does a triple axel with a good jump. He follows it by doing a quadruple salchow, and as he spins around, Yuri notices that Audebek's trademark is actually his determination and his serious aura. Audebek then does a sequence of steps and finishes his performance under a round of applause. Even Victor compliments his smooth skating, which makes Yuri feel even more down since he is pathetically desperate like that. Audebek gets a score of 112, which earns him the second position against Yuri's first position and Yuri's last position. JJ the Cringe Master takes the stage at the very last, and he begins his performance by preaching to himself that he is the best. As he aims to do his first jump, he recalls Audebek's impression, and instead of doing a quadruple toe loop, he messes up and does only one jump instead. He doesn't make a comeback in the second half either, as he does a triple axel only. He then recalls how he proposed to his girlfriend and told her that he will marry her once he wins the championship. Soon he starts to feel the pressure of the Grand Prix, especially due to the talent of all of the other skaters, but the singing of the audience brings him back. He tries to recover as he does a passionate sequence of steps, and then for the last jump, he attempts to do a quadruple Lutz which turns into a single rotation only. He finishes his performance while Yuri recalls that he made similar blunders last year at the Grand Prix. He then gets a score of around 86, which is his worst score yet in the senior division, but when he hears his fiancée and the audience cheering him on, he recovers and makes a standard JJ pose. Afterwards, Yuri and Victor blow off steam at the hotel, and Yuri asks Victor to end their relationship once the Grand Prix is over. Yuri tells Victor that he has done enough for him and then thanks him for being his coach. Victor starts to cry because of his feelings and calls Yuri selfish for only thinking about himself. He tells him that he is mad since he thought he would need him for longer. The last day of the Grand Prix Tour tournament arrives, in which the reporters report that Yuri hasn't come in public sight since his previous performance, but Yuri still shows up for public practice. Victor then tells the audience to cheer for Yuri, and even the reporter notices that he doesn't seem very energetic. The tournament begins with JJ's performance first, and he misses the starting music. He then hastily starts skating and messes up his first jump. He is the only player who has 4 quads planned, so he does a quadruple toe loop next, which is followed by a triple toe loop. He tells himself that he is like a bird with a broken wing and that he doesn't win out of sheer luck. He successfully does a triple axel next, and reminding himself that only he can do the JJ style, he does a quadruple toe loop next. He misses one step in it, but ultimately he finishes his performance, which gets his fans cheering like a bunch of maniacs. Yuri prepares for his performance while Fidget takes the stage next. He starts his performance and messes up a triple axel in the beginning, but he quickly recovers and reminds himself that everybody in Thailand is cheering for him. He has 1 quad planned only since he hasn't practiced for more than that, and he lands a quadruple toe loop perfectly. For his combination, he lands a triple flip, a single loop, and a double flip. He reminds himself of his dream that he wants to have an ice show at Thailand one day where everyone can figure skate, and he then finishes his performance. Yuri finishes up his warm-up in an awkward silence with Victor, and as his performance is about to begin, Victor assures him that he can win the gold. Victor then teases him that he has retired to become his coach, yet he can't even win a gold medal for him, and they both hug like a couple of rainbow bros. Yuri begins his performance on Yuri on Ice, and for his first quad, he does a quadruple toe loop followed by a double toe loop. He thanks Victor in his heart for bringing him this far and then successfully lands a quadruple salchow. He follows it by doing a triple flip rather than a triple loop, which was originally planned, and he tells himself that his performance needs to be more difficult to get a gold. He does a triple axel next, followed by a quadruple toe loop, which was also not planned. He adds a quad mid-performance and does a combination of triple axel, single loop and a triple salchow. He continues to do a triple lutz with a triple toe loop, and he assures himself that Victor's training wasn't a waste of time on him. He does a passionate sequence of steps and then lands his final quad by doing a quadruple flip, which is also Victor's signature move. He then finishes his performance and starts crying since he is a loser as always. He gets a score of around 221, which breaks even the world record held by Victor for scoring the most in the men's single free skating program. Victor congratulates him and tells him that it's an insult as a competitor for both the Yuris to break his records. Chris begins his performance next while he realizes that it may be very difficult for him to get a gold this year too. He lands a quadruple lutz first, and when he sees Victor and Yuri taking pictures together, he messes up his quadruple salchow by doing a single instead. He does a triple axel and follows it by doing a combination of triple axel, a single loop and a triple salchow. He then finishes his performance with a strong applause from the ladies and gets a score which earns him the third position. Audebik takes the stage next and starts off strong by doing a quadruple toe loop. Yuri heads towards the stage while Audebik lands a quadruple salchow followed by a triple toe loop, and Victor tells Yakov that he plans to return to skating specifically in the Russian national. He elaborates that Yuri also plans to make a decision after the Grand Prix finale and then hugs Yuri. Audebik does a triple axel following it by doing a quadruple salchow and does a last combination which includes a triple flip, single loop and a triple salchow. He lands his final jump too and finishes his performance strong after landing all his quads perfectly. He earns the third position and Yuri takes the stage at the very last. He starts off with doing a quadruple salchow and then does a spread into a triple axel with a raised arm to get more marks. He thinks about how stupid it is that Yuri wants to retire if he wins a gold and does a triple flip in anger. As he enters the second half, he does a quadruple toe loop but ends up falling on the ice. He quickly recovers and does a combo of quadruple salchow and a triple toe loop with both arms raised. He adds a quad in his program at the last minute as he does a quadruple toe loop followed by a double toe loop. Finally, for his last quad, he does a triple axel followed by a single loop and a triple salchow. He finishes off his performance and gets a score of 200, which beats Yuri's score by 0.12 only. Yuri wins a gold medal while Yuri gets a silver medal coming in second, and Victor tells him that he only wanted to kiss his gold medal. Yuri then asks him to become his coach for the next year too so that he can win the gold medal for him, and Victor agrees. That's it for today, my fellow men of culture. Like and subscribe the channel for more plot-filled recaps.